There is something that the greatest professionals in almost every field have in common. You can't see them working. The sound designer on a film set doesn't want you thinking about sound design when you're sitting in the cinema. The camera operator doesn't want you thinking about the clever camera moves. And the editor certainly doesn't want you thinking about the edit. All of those professionals, they want you to forget that they exist. And when they succeed at doing that, when their expertise becomes totally and utterly invisible, well, that is when the expertise is working. The coach who makes the client feel understood rather than advised. The consultant whose methodology nobody in the room is really thinking about. The content that reaches out to someone without them noticing it was even made. This is episode 4 of the communication business. And it begins really on one of the most technically sophisticated film sets in the world, where again, I had no lines given to me. And then, unexpectedly, I did. And then, even more unexpectedly, the scene was cut. Really, there's a great pleasure in telling you this story because there's an absurdity to it, and then there's a gift inside that absurdity. So back in the late 1990s, I was an extra on a Bond film. The film was Tomorrow Never Dies. It did not have that title when I was on set, because the Broccoli family who produced the Bond franchise, well, they're really famously protective of the next Bond title. So each film when it's being made is assigned a number, and the title, really, that's only announced in post-production. So I was on the set of a film with no name, and to me, it felt absolutely incredible to witness the sheer scale of everything. I had a non-anonymity, and then that gave me a privilege to observe. Now, here's the thing. The industry of filmmaking has a very clear view about extra work. The hierarchy of filmmaking, it strongly discourages professional actors from being extras. The logic being that once you're known as an extra, you'll be forever known as an extra and never taken seriously as an actor. I disagree with this entirely, but I digress. I'd been on set for some time when the second AD, second assistant director, approached me. Now, he had somehow learned that my A-levels in high school were in chemistry, physics and maths. Now, that's unusual, to put it mildly, for an actor. And he asked me if I was comfortable with lines. That may seem a strange thing to say, but many extras are not comfortable with lines. Now, I was trained as an actor, so I said yes. And that is how I ended up improvising a scene with Pierce Brosnan. Now, before I tell you about the scene itself, I want to tell you about Brosnan on that set, because it was remarkable. He treated everyone, I know this might sound strange, as a human being. From the youngest 19-year-old gaffer running about with gaffer tape to the director, the actors, the extras, everyone, regardless of their position in the film hierarchy. Now, there are 3 possible ways to read that action. 1, he was Bond, and Bond is charming. He was in character from the moment he arrived. 2, he understood professionally that the collective energy of every person on a film set, from the most junior all the way through to the most senior, all of them contribute to what ends up on the screen, and he was cultivating that energy deliberately. 3, he's simply a genuine and a humane individual who sees the person in front of him regardless of their external status. My own view, the third option. Here's the thing, Brosnan wasn't in character. I lived in Hampstead and I saw Brosnan off set and he was exactly the same as he was on set. But here is what I do know for certain. It doesn't really matter which of those three is actually true, because the effect that Brosnan had on every person around him was identical. Everyone gave their best. The set, it had an energy. And when the second assistant director brought me over to meet him, Brosnan gave me that very same attention. It was complete. It was unhurried. It was genuine. And we began. What happened next in that scene is something that really I've thought about many times since. Not because it went well, but because of what happened afterwards. The scene was set inside MI6 headquarters and there was an explosive device on the premises. Now my character, the scientist, had discovered the nature of that explosive device and Bond, he needed to know. Now, Brosnan had an ease and a grace about him that I can only describe as generous. His presence gave me space to be that boffin, the rational one, the expert. A dance evolved between us very quickly. And this is one of the things that professional actors understand, that most people outside of the profession simply do not. Actors feed one another. They rely on an energy that passes invisibly between them. And so Brosnan listened to every word I said. Not out of politeness, not as a professional stance, he actually listened. And that listening gave him the energy to respond to what I was about to tell him. I gestured towards the case of cash that was on the desk between us. Bond, the bomb is right here, in the cash. He looked at me. I tapped the cash. The cash, Bond. The bomb is the cash. One take. The scene worked. The scene flowed. The scene was cut. And I want to tell you why I think it was cut. Because the reason it was cut tells you something important about the expertise and about the message that that expertise really serves. Now, I can't tell you for certain why I was cut. Certainly nobody told me. But I have a suspicion. In a genuinely improvised scene, when there are two actors, they're fully present, actually listening, actually feeding one another, or something happened to the status of that scene. In effect, it levelled out. Bond and the boffin found each other's energy, and the dance between them was real. And Bond cannot be too equal. Bond must always be Bond. The franchise has a requirement that even genuine truth must ultimately serve. Now, the expertise worked, but the scene did not serve the message. There's an understanding I have about that now that's not looking back at that as failure, but as a type of revelation, because the craft itself worked, but the structure around it couldn't accommodate what that craft produced. And here, importantly, is why that matters for you. In any professional communication situation, status is in operation. Your client has a need, and that need must remain the centre. The moment your expertise shifts status too much towards you, even genuinely, even because the other person is listening well, the message has been lost. Your expertise is the listening and not the revelation. The bomb is not your knowledge. The bomb is understanding what they're sitting across from.
There are two ways of bringing expertise into a conversation. The first, the expertise takes center stage. The methodology is visible, the knowledge is demonstrated. The client is thinking about the expert, which means they've stopped thinking about their own problem. The second, the expertise disappears into the service of the other person. They don't know what method you're using. They only know that they feel understood. The scene that gets cut is the one where the expertise is more interesting than the message. The scene that stays is the one nobody noticed was made.
I spent something like 2 weeks on that film inside the machinery of Hollywood, watching how hundreds of experts come together and work together in order to disappear. I observed Brosnan move through that set, really with a quality of attention I've tried to describe to clients ever since. I stood beside him in an improvised scene, and I felt what it means when someone is actually listening. And then the scene was cut. And cutting the movie, well, it couldn't cut the experience. When we focus on the richness of what we bring, on the quality of that experience that we create, well, that cannot be taken away. Not by any editor, not by any cutting room, not by any kind of client who doesn't sign on the line which is dotted, not by a video that gets 12 views. The results are not yours to keep. The experience is. This is the communication business. 4 episodes, but one real argument. We are in the communication business. Sincerity is our mechanism. Truth travels without words. And expertise becomes most powerful when it disappears into the service of our message. It's something to do with honesty, but honesty that's crafted into a series. The river here, the phone, the old selfie stick, all of these things, all of these episodes, what they've meant to me personally is that delivery of understanding. Now, if any of this is landing for you, if you sense that the gap between what you're bringing to your work and what is actually reaching people might be worth a conversation, then send me a message, send me an email. Take good care of yourself and of those you seek to work with.